A very good day to all of you, dear friends. Welcome to the second part of my talk on self-image and self-esteem. The previous time, my focus was on self-image. Today, I shall focus mainly on self-esteem. But it's important to note that self-image and self-esteem are very much interrelated and are often clubbed together. Also note that much of what I said about self-image the last time could also apply to self-esteem. So, though I repeat some points, they bear repetition. Now, what is self-esteem? The dictionary speaks of it as self-respect or self-regard. Self-esteem is your opinion of yourself or how you feel about yourself. It's a socio-psycho term which reflects a person's judgment as well as attitudes and beliefs about himself or herself. Let's take an example. I have a self-image of myself as a teacher. My self-esteem tells me that I am competent and effective as a teacher, and I feel good about it. Yes, friends, self-esteem goes to the heart of personal identity. It conveys the belief that we are acceptable, respected, loved as the persons we are, even if there be some imperfections in us. Who gives us ultimately our self-esteem? It is God. As we see in Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 10, it says, He, meaning God, shields us and cares for us as the apple of His eye. What a privilege. You and I are considered as the apple of God's eye. Shouldn't that raise our self-esteem? Therefore, self-esteem helps us to be at peace with ourselves, in the knowledge deep within us that we matter and are acceptable just as we are. To understand what self-esteem is, we also should look at what self-esteem is not. Therefore, it isn't putting on airs. It isn't an attitude of superiority. It isn't looking down on others as being below your dignity. It isn't a proud, peacock-like walk with head held high and chest puffed out as if you are God's gift to mankind. Yet again, it isn't self-absorption, what is now called meology, where the focus is on I, myself, and me alone. And finally, among other things, it isn't asserting my right to do whatever I want and whenever I want it. So keeping all this in mind, we realize that self-esteem involves positive and negative evaluations of the self. And these evaluations may be considered to be high self-esteem when you have a good positive opinion of yourself, or a low self-esteem when you have a poor, negative or bad opinion of yourself. Those with low self-esteem may focus on their weaknesses despite having many strengths, and they may call themselves losers or good for nothing. Let's remind ourselves that no one, absolutely no one, is a loser in God's eyes. God does not create junk. It's like an insult to God, who loves us just the way we are, when we exaggerate our imperfections and flaws, blowing them out of proportion. I'm reminded of Rajesh Khanna and Amitabh Bachchan. When Rajesh Khanna, the Indian actor, was in his heyday, Amitabh Bachchan was sidelined. Why? Because they said he was too tall, too thin, too lanky, and with an unsuitable voice. Imagine if Mr. Bachchan had believed all this, where would he be today? But you and I know that today he's doing very well for himself. This brings us to the point about the role of other people's opinions in determining one's self-esteem. Many of us tend to take the opinions of others far too seriously and personally, thereby caring too much about what others think of us, especially if it's in the area we hold dear to our heart. I remember as a youngster, I loved singing, and I still do. And though I knew I had a good voice, I hesitated to sing in choirs or to take part in singing competitions. Why? Because I was told my voice was soft, no power in it, with no range or depth. I believed this, and as in the parable of the 10 talents, I buried my talent in the ground, till years later, as a teacher, a kind choir master priest encouraged me and even gave me a stellar singing role in an opera. And I went on to do another opera as the main actor. Yes, friends, imagine if I had remained with that belief that I could not sing. Besides the opinions of others, another problem area is depending on the approval and admiration of others whom you hold in high esteem. We depend on their approval to make us feel better about ourselves, to the point that it becomes like an addiction and almost paralyzes our creativity and self-esteem. Once again, I remember, I'm also a good writer, and in college, I gave an article for publication in the college magazine. It was rejected, with no reasons given. I felt deflated, but I didn't lose heart. I initially wanted their approval and admiration, but then I realized that my own approval, my own self-admiration was enough. And today I do write and write well. Les Brown has rightly said, someone else's opinion of you does not have to become your reality, I'll repeat this because it's so important. Someone else's opinion of you does not have to become your reality. Yes, indeed, a person having high self-esteem rarely feels insecure. Such a person is self-confident and quite detached from the approvals and opinions of others. Indeed, a Christian with high self-esteem lives by what Isaiah chapter 43 verse 4 says, in God's name, "You are precious in my sight and honored, and I love you." Who says this? God says this to us. You are precious in my sight, you are honored, and I love you. What a boost to one's self-esteem. Sometimes physical or bodily changes are necessary and can do wonders for one's self-image and self-esteem. Such necessary changes may be in girls who are attacked with acid, or in victims of burns, or those born with deformities like a cleft palate. In such cases, operations become a necessity, and persons who receive these operations, their self-esteem gets boosted because they now have a better self-image. But sadly, today, a large number of models, actresses, and those with money to throw around resort to plastic surgeries, facelifts, breast implants, gender changes, and what have you. Now, these may temporarily help one's self-esteem, but many a time they have to resort to frequent such operations. And in the long term, they are faced with many physical ailments and much discomfort, leading to regrets and a lowering of their self-image and self-esteem, because they feel mentally, emotionally, and physically taxed. They forget that to unnecessarily tamper with God's creation is dangerous and harmful. I like this quote of Marianne Williamson. She says, "Rather than looking to things and people outside ourselves to confirm our worth, we achieve self-esteem through self-awareness and cultivation of a relationship with God." Yes, cultivation of a relationship with God. One's connection to God adds to one's self-esteem. As Dr. Wayne Dyer also said, "My self-esteem comes from myself. As a child of God, my worthiness is a given fact, that is, needing no further explanation." Now, hedonistic pleasures, eat, drink, make merry, or money, or status, or possessions may enhance one's self-esteem up to a point. But they are shallow, temporary ways to enhance one's self-esteem. Why? Firstly, because if these are taken away, what is left of our self-esteem? Recently, Rahim, a so-called Baba, who had acres of land, money, properties, buildings, cars, and what have you, he was caught and punished with many years of imprisonment. What a shame to his self-esteem. We have Vijay Mallya, run away from India, and I wonder how he can look at people in the eye with any self-esteem. Yes, friends, another reason is because even poor persons, those lacking in money, status, and possessions, can be high in self-esteem. So it's not only the rich who can have high self-esteem. Persons with true self-esteem do not chase after things that the media or persons like actors and actresses tell us is important. I could name a whole lot of them, but just a few. If you put some cream, you will get no pimples. If you put another cream, you will have no wrinkles. And if you put some cream, you will become fair and lovely and handsome and whatever. These are all money-making rackets. True self-esteem reminds us that we are okay no matter what our experiences may be at any given time. Let's take some concrete examples. My self-image may tell me I'm too short or too tall, too skinny or too stout, too dark or too fair. That's my self-image. But if I can truly say to myself with each attribute, so what? I'm okay about being tall or skinny or dark. That has nothing to do with my self-esteem. So when I take this attitude, I'm okay just the way I am. It enhances my self-esteem. But if I grumble and complain to God, I wish I were taller, I wish I were shorter, I wish I were thinner, and so on, then it becomes a problem. We will never be happy or never be satisfied, and we will suffer from low self-esteem. The actress Ingrid Bergman was very tall and was unhappy, and she went in for an operation where they removed some of her bones of the pelvis and made her a little shorter. Then again, there are many foreigners who come to Goa, and they love to go on the beaches without their shirts on. Why? Because they want to go back and show how nice and dark-skinned they have become. Whereas here in India, we want to become fair-skinned. What an anomaly, okay? What about the Indian and Goan matrimonial advertisements and proposals? They can be terrible letdowns for prospective brides and grooms. A groom may want a fair bride. A bride may want a groom with not just in thousands salary, but in lakhs, and with a big palatial flat, and what have you. Yes, friends, all these things are superficial. We need to be focused on our inner self and be happy and satisfied just the way we are. Let's now highlight some ways in which self-esteem can be consciously or unwittingly destroyed by others. One way is by being abused as a growing child, physically, verbally, and even sexually. All these lower the child's self-esteem. Then again, in school or in the neighborhood, being bullied by peers or teased or beaten all these can lower one's self-esteem. I remember when I joined my hostel in Bombay on the very first day, we were subject to ragging. Today I think it's banned, but at that time it was something that everyone accepted. I was mortally frightened. And what did they make us do? They made us undress right down to our underwear. So we only had our underwear on, and we had to parade from the hostel to the gate of the college, which was around maybe 400 meters. And many of us felt ashamed. But today, there are children who cannot take it, and they even commit suicide. What about in marriages? Many are subjected to harassment by in-laws. Many are subjected to dowry demands, and when they cannot meet those demands, they commit suicide. Or there is separation and divorce. All these leading to a lowering of one's self-esteem. What about shaming? Making a person feel ashamed through criticism. This can happen at the hands of parents, teachers, and others. Now this shaming criticism can be of two types: toxic, poisonous, and destructive, or it can be constructive and healthy criticism. Toxic criticism says, you are not okay. Whereas constructive criticism says, some things that you did were not okay. Can you see the difference? One blames the person, the other focuses on the things done. So let us focus not on the toxic, but on the constructive criticism, where we can help someone to improve. A reminder, today's world, there's a lot of envy and jealousy. And some will criticize you and attack you, accusing you of things they are themselves guilty of. And in psychology, as a defense mechanism, it is called projection. You project your failings onto others. What should you do? Ignore such persons' remarks. Or, where possible, contradict them and speak the truth. If not on a one-to-one basis, at least in your mind, tell yourself that these criticisms are not true of you. Now, how does one develop high self-esteem? Firstly, by daily prayerful meditation. Daily prayerful meditation. I don't always do it, but most of the time I wake up around 5:30 or so in order to spend time with the Lord. And as Rabindranath Tagore said, I have come to you to take your touch before I begin my day. How wonderful it is to begin your day with prayerful meditation. It boosts your self-image and your self-esteem. You learn to experience the deep connection with God, who chose to give you life. You and I are alive because God chose to give us life. So let's be grateful. And not only that, God has made us in His own image and likeness, as Galatians 5 verse 1 says. Secondly, discover for yourselves that in God, in Him, we live and move and have our being. Acts 17 verse 28. If we have our being in God, what more do we need? From time to time, sing hymns of praise and thanks to God. Whenever possible, read books, read magazine articles on self-help. Talk to loved ones, maybe your parents and teachers who care for you, or others whom you may call your mentors. Talk to them about how you feel, and very often you will be boosted by their remarks to you. Next, connect with those who love you and affirm you. I do this most of the time now. If there is someone who is too critical of me, I keep him or her at arm's length. Why should I spoil my day with their foolish and inconsequential remarks? So connect with those who love you and affirm you. Does it mean that I reject the other people? No. I am civil. Hi, good morning, how are you? That's it. So remember, learn to be assertive, especially when you are in the right. Don't take blame unnecessarily. Don't take anger of others when you are not to blame. Ask questions. Why do you say this to me? Ask for explanations. And if possible, explain yourself. But at all times, ignore unfair criticism. However, we all make mistakes. So if I do something wrong, what should I do? I should apologize and make amends. If I break a glass and I just don't bother, that's wrong. I can buy a new glass or at least pay for it. Some people think apologizing is a sign of weakness. Not at all. Not at all. Apology is the mark of a person with high self-esteem. I give you my recent example. I kind of was angry with my servant because she had become lazy and was kind of shirking her work. And in my anger, I said some unsavory things. The very next day, she said, "I'm leaving your job." I was very upset and I said some more unsavory things. But then I realized I am to blame. I could have handled this so much better. And a few days later, I went and apologized. It cost me. After all, I'm a professor, she's a servant. But where is servant and professor in the eyes of God? We are all equal. And I am glad I apologized, because now, even if I meet her face to face, I can smile and say, "How are you?" and I move on. So friends, apologizing is a need. And of course, learn to forgive yourself. I have learned to forgive myself, not only in this, but in many other cases where I have hurt people. So apologize, forgive yourself, and make allowances for yourself. So learn from your mistakes. Celebrate your successes, however minor they may be. On some other occasion, I had shared how whenever I went out with my daughter for some competition, we always celebrated whether she succeeded or not. Likewise, in our own personal lives, celebrate. After I finish my talk, for the past several occasions, I go and have a shira, That's my form of celebration. I love Shira and I don't make it at home, so celebrate my success with Shira. You can do the same on your own. When feeling low, depressed, totally avoid mind-altering substances. It is so easy to go for the bottle, and you know what bottle I'm referring to. And worse still, to go for drugs. Therefore, be careful. Do not resort to such mind-altering substances or even unhealthy behavior. Be careful. Likewise, let's eat and sleep optimally, neither overeating nor undereating, not sleeping too much, not sleeping too little. All this gives us a sense of good health, together with exercise that we need to do daily. It will make you feel good and boost your self-esteem, your self-image. Don't say or do anything that is permanently damaging when you are temporarily upset. I remember I was upset with one of my colleagues and I said something harsh. I was temporarily upset, but I said something that has not been forgotten. And whenever I meet this colleague and even others who heard me, they remind me. So friends, don't say or do anything that is permanently damaging when you are temporarily upset. It will lower your self-esteem. Do good things and do them well. Link this up with celebrating your successes. Pat yourself on your back when you do things well. Aim to do things well. Respect begets respect. If you respect yourself, others will respect you. But if you don't respect yourself, how can you expect others to respect you? So if you want to have self-esteem, learn to respect yourself. There is dignity in labor. Whether you are doing a high-paid job or a menial job, makes no difference. Have this attitude of dignity in labor. Avoid unhealthy, negative self-talk. I'm sure you understand what I mean when I say self-talk. Many of us, when we are alone, our mind works and we say things like, oh, I wish I didn't say that. I wish I hadn't done that. Avoid such negative self-talk. If it is positive, fine, go ahead. Parents, teachers. In conclusion, I want to say, be careful what you say to your children, what you say to your students, because it can lower their self-esteem. If at all, whatever you say and do, help to boost their self-esteem. And for all of us, I'd like to end with this serenity prayer that is prayed every day by members of Alcoholics Anonymous. It says, "O God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Grant me the courage to change the things I can. And grant me the wisdom to know the difference between what I cannot change and what I can change. And at all times, keep me calm and serving you for your greater glory, for your kingdom." I bid you a good day again, and thank you for your listening.